The cattle were restless that evening in June of 1878, their eyes rolling white with fear as thunder rumbled across the Montana sky. And Bennett York thought he might lose the entire herd if something did not settle them soon. He had been driving these 300 head from the lower pastures toward Bozeman for nearly 2 weeks, and the storm brewing on the horizon threatened to scatter them across half the territory. The air smelled of rain and electricity, and Bennett could feel the tension running through every muscle of his body as he tried to keep the cattle from stampeding. His horse danced beneath him, picking up on the nervous energy that rippled through the herd like wildfire waiting for a spark. Then he heard it, a voice, clear and pure as mountain water, drifting across the grassland from somewhere beyond the next rise. Bennett pulled his horse to a stop, one hand raised to signal his men to hold their positions, and listened. The song was unfamiliar to him, something soft and melodic that seemed to wrap around the anxious lowing of the cattle and gentle it into something calmer. He watched in amazement as the nearest steers stopped their nervous shuffling and turned their heads toward that sound, ears pricked forward with interest rather than fear. Bennett nudged his horse forward slowly, following the sound of that voice. As he crested the small hill, he saw her standing in a meadow dotted with wildflowers, her back to him, arms spread slightly as if embracing the approaching storm. Her dark hair hung in a long braid down her back, and her simple calico dress moved gently in the wind. She sang with her whole heart, seemingly unaware that she had an audience of both man and beast. The cattle were following him now, drawn by that voice like moths to a flame, but their movement was slow and peaceful rather than the panicked rush he had feared. Bennett sat frozen in his saddle, transfixed by the scene before him. The woman's voice rose and fell with the wind, sometimes barely audible, sometimes ringing out clear and strong. She sang of green valleys and quiet streams, of safety and rest, and the cattle responded as if they understood every word. Bennett did not move, did not speak, hardly dared to breathe for fear of breaking the spell she had woven. The sun began its slow descent toward the mountains, painting the sky in shades of gold and amber, and still she sang. His men had caught up now, spreading out in a loose circle to keep the herd contained, but they too sat silent and still, watching this unexpected miracle unfold before them. The storm clouds that had threatened so ominously began to drift northward, leaving only a gentle breeze in their wake. The woman's song shifted, becoming softer, more like a lullaby, and Bennett watched as his cattle settled down into the grass, chewing their cud contentedly as if they had not been moments away from a stampede less than an hour ago. As the last rays of sunlight stretched across the prairie, the woman's song came to an end. She stood silent for a moment, her head bowed, and then she turned. Her eyes met his across the distance, and Bennett felt something shift in his chest, like the ground moving beneath his feet. Even in the fading light, he could see that her eyes were the color of winter sage, gray-green and filled with a depth that made him forget his own name for a moment. "I hope you do not mind," she called out, her speaking voice as lovely as her singing. "Your cattle seemed troubled, and I thought perhaps music might help." Bennett found his voice, though it came out rougher than he intended. "Mind? Madam, you just saved me from losing half my herd and probably my job along with it." He swung down from his horse and walked toward her, removing his hat as he approached. "Bennett York, and I am more grateful than I can properly express." She smiled, and it transformed her entire face, bringing a warmth to her features that made his heart skip a beat. "Lily Jenkins. I run a small homestead about a mile west of here. I heard the cattle and thought I might be able to help. My father always said I could calm any creature with a song. "Your father was a wise man," Bennett said, then hesitated. "Is he nearby? I would like to thank him as well." The light dimmed slightly in her eyes. "He passed 2 winters ago. Fever took him quick, and it has just been me since then." "I am sorry for your loss," Bennett said, meaning it deeply. The idea of this woman alone on the prairie, managing a homestead by herself, filled him with a mixture of admiration and concern. It must be difficult, working the land alone. "I manage well enough," Lily said, lifting her chin slightly in a way that suggested she had heard doubt before and had proven it wrong more than once. "I have my garden, some chickens, 2 milk cows, and my father taught me to hunt. The land is not much, but it is mine, and I will not give it up." Bennett found himself smiling at her fierce independence even as he worried about the dangers a woman alone might face. "I have no doubt you are more than capable, Miss Jenkins. Still, I wonder if I might impose upon you for a moment more of your time. My men and I have been on the trail for nearly 2 weeks, and we are bone tired. Would you mind terribly if we made camp near here for the night? Your singing seems to have put the cattle in a better mood than I have seen them in days, and I would hate to move them now and risk stirring them up again." Lily studied him for a long moment, her sage-colored eyes searching his face as if reading the truth of his intentions written there. Finally, she nodded. "You may camp in this meadow if you wish. I will bring you some bread and preserves in the morning if you like. I imagine trail food gets tiresome after a while." "That would be most kind," Bennett said, and found himself wanting to say more, to keep her standing there in the twilight talking with him, but he could not think of a reasonable excuse to detain her further. "May I walk you back to your homestead? It is getting dark, and there might be wolves about." "I know these lands better than I know my own face, Mr. York," Lily said with a slight smile. "I have walked them in far darker nights than this, but I thank you for the offer." She gathered her skirts and began to walk away, then paused and looked back over her shoulder. "I come out here most evenings when the weather is fair. The sunset is particularly beautiful from this spot." With that, she disappeared into the gathering dusk, leaving Bennett standing alone with his hat in his hands, and a strange warmth spreading through his chest that had nothing to do with the summer evening. His foreman, a grizzled man named Tom Fletcher, rode up beside him with a knowing grin on his weathered face. "Well now, that was something to see. In all my years working cattle, I have never seen them settle so quick. That little lady has a gift." "That she does," Bennett agreed, still staring after Lily even though she had long since vanished from sight. "Tell the men to make camp here for the night. Keep the watch rotation standard, but I do not think we will have trouble from the herd tonight." "And what about tomorrow?" Tom asked, his grin widening. "We pushing on to Bozeman, or do you think the cattle might need another evening of settling?" Bennett shot him a look that held no real heat. "We will see how they are in the morning. Right now, let us just be grateful they are not scattered across 3 counties." That night, as Bennett lay in his bedroll staring up at the stars, he found himself replaying every moment of that encounter. The way Lily's voice had wrapped around the evening like a tangible thing. The fierce pride in her eyes when she spoke of her homestead. The graceful way she had moved through the wildflowers, as much a part of this wild land as the grass and the sky. He had known women before, had even courted a banker's daughter back in Denver for a few months before realizing they had nothing in common beyond pleasant conversation. But he had never felt this pull, this immediate and undeniable knowledge that he had just met someone who would change his life forever. When dawn broke across the prairie, Bennett was already awake, watching the eastern sky turn from black to purple to pink. The cattle were still calm, grazing peacefully in the meadow, and his men were beginning to stir from their bedrolls. He made coffee over the fire, strong and black, and tried to convince himself that the anticipation he felt had everything to do with Lily's promised bread, and nothing to do with seeing her again. He failed utterly in this self-deception. She appeared as the sun cleared the horizon, walking through the tall grass with a basket over her arm and her dark braids swinging against her back. She wore a different dress today, a faded blue cotton that brought out the gray in her eyes, and Bennett found himself on his feet before he had consciously decided to stand. "Good morning, Mr. York," she called out as she approached. "I hope you and your men slept well." "Well enough, thank you," Bennett said, taking the basket from her arms. The scent of fresh, baked bread wafted up, making his mouth water. "Miss Jenkins, this is incredibly kind of you. You did not have to go to such trouble." "It is no trouble," Lily assured him. "I bake several times a week anyway, and I have more preserves than I can use before they spoil. My strawberry patch was particularly productive this year." The men gathered around eagerly as Bennett distributed the bread and jars of ruby-red preserves. The appreciative sounds they made as they ate brought a pleased flush to Lily's cheeks, and Bennett noticed how the morning light caught in her hair, picking out threads of auburn among the brown. "Miss Jenkins," he found himself saying before he could think better of it, "my men and I will be moving the herd out soon, but we will be in Bozeman for at least a few days while the cattle are sold and the account settled. I wonder if I might call on you before we head back south. To thank you properly for your help, I mean." Lily's expression became guarded, and Bennett cursed himself for pushing too hard too fast. But then she smiled, just a small quirk of her lips, and nodded. "I suppose that would be acceptable, Mr. York. Though I should warn you that proper courting is difficult when one lives alone. I have no chaperone to offer you tea and disapproving looks." "I think we might manage without one," Bennett said, his heart suddenly light. "Would Saturday afternoon suit you?" "I should have my business concluded by then." "Saturday would be fine," Lily agreed. "Follow the creek west from this meadow about a mile. You will see my cabin on a small rise near a stand of cottonwoods." She left shortly after, and Bennett found himself grinning like a fool as he watched her go. Tom rode up beside him, shaking his head with amusement. "Boss, I have known you for 3 years now, and I have never seen you smile like that. You have got it bad." "Mind your own business, Tom," Bennett said, but his grin did not fade. "Let us get these cattle moving. The sooner we reach Bozeman, the sooner I can get back here." The drive into Bozeman went smoothly, the cattle still docile and easy to manage after Lily's unexpected intervention. The town was bustling with activity, miners and ranchers and merchants all going about their business in the organized chaos that characterized most frontier settlements. Bennett oversaw the sale of the cattle to a local rancher who was building up his stock, negotiated a fair price, and handled all the paperwork with an efficiency born of long practice. Usually, he enjoyed these trips to town, the chance to sleep in a real bed and have a proper bath and a hot meal. But now, he found himself impatient, counting the hours until Saturday when he could ride back out to that small homestead by the creek. He bought supplies for the return journey, and then found himself standing in front of the general store's window display, looking at a bolt of fabric in a shade of green that matched Lily's eyes. Before he could talk himself out of it, he went inside and purchased 3 yards of it, along with a box of the finest tea the store had to offer and a book of poetry that the shopkeeper's wife assured him was very romantic and appropriate for courting. Tom found him packing these items carefully in his saddlebags and raised an eyebrow. "Gifts already? You have not even courted her properly yet. Is it wrong to bring something when calling on a lady?" Bennett asked defensively. "Not wrong, just forward," Tom said, but he was smiling. "Though I will say, boss, If any woman deserves some niceties, it is one living alone on a homestead and still finding time to help strangers with nothing but a song. You could do a lot worse." "I know it," Bennett said quietly. "I just hope she thinks the same of me." Saturday dawned clear and bright, and Bennett was on his horse and riding west before the sun had fully risen. He told himself he was just eager to get an early start, but the truth was he had barely slept, his mind full of images of sage-colored eyes and a voice that could calm storms. He found her homestead exactly where she had said it would be, a small but well-maintained cabin nestled among the cottonwoods with a neat garden stretching out behind it. Chickens scratched in the yard, and he could see a small barn and corral where 2 cows grazed peacefully. Smoke rose from the chimney, and as he dismounted, the door opened and Lily stepped out. She had changed into a nicer dress, he noticed, a soft yellow cotton with white flowers embroidered around the collar, and her hair was pinned up in a way that showed the graceful line of her neck. His mouth went dry, and suddenly all the speeches he had practiced on the ride over fled from his mind. "Mr. York," she said with a warm smile, "you are prompt. I have just finished making lemonade. Would you care for some?" "That sounds wonderful, Miss Jenkins," he managed to say, remembering at the last moment to grab the packages from his saddlebags. "I brought you a few things if you will accept them, just tokens of appreciation." Her eyes widened as she saw the gifts, and for a moment he feared he had overstepped. But then she reached out to touch the green fabric with gentle fingers, and her face lit up with genuine pleasure. "Oh, Mr. York, this is beautiful. And tea, real tea, not the wild herbs I have been making do with, and a book." She opened it carefully, her eyes scanning the first page. "This is too much, truly." "It is not nearly enough," Bennett said honestly. "You saved my job, Miss Jenkins, and possibly my life. If those cattle had stampeded, there is no telling what might have happened. Please, accept them with my gratitude." Lily looked up at him, and something soft and warm filled her eyes. "Then I accept with thanks. Come, sit on the porch with me and tell me how your business in Bozeman went." They sat in the shade of the porch, drinking cold lemonade and talking about everything and nothing. She told him about her life on the homestead, the challenges of managing the land alone, but also the deep satisfaction she found in being self-sufficient. He told her about growing up in Colorado, about learning the cattle business from his uncle, about his dream of someday owning his own ranch where he could raise horses along with cattle. "My father bred horses," Lily said softly. "Beautiful palominos with spirit and strength. He sold the last of them before he died to pay for medicine that ultimately did no good. I have often thought about starting again, building back what was lost, but horses require more land and resources than I can manage alone." "Perhaps you will not always be alone," Bennett said, then felt his face heat at his own boldness. "I mean, that is to say, I would be honored if you would allow me to court you properly, Miss Jenkins. I know we have only just met, and I know I have no right to ask, but I have never felt about anyone the way I felt the moment I heard you singing. Like I had been looking for something my whole life without knowing it, and suddenly there you were." Lily was quiet for a long moment, her hands folded in her lap, her eyes fixed on the distant mountains. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "My father made me promise before he died that I would not give up this land to marry some man who would take it from me and leave me with nothing. So many women lose everything when they marry, become invisible in the eyes of the law. I told him I would never marry unless I found a man who saw me as a partner, not as property." Bennett reached out slowly and covered her hand with his, giving her plenty of time to pull away if she wished. She did not. "Miss Jenkins, Lily, if you will have me, I swear to you that I would never ask you to give up what you have built here. This land is yours, and it should stay yours. I would only ever want to help you build on it, to be your partner in every sense of the word." She turned her hand over beneath his, lacing their fingers together, and when she looked up at him, her eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Then yes, Mr. York Bennett, I would be honored to have you court me." The summer that followed was the happiest Bennett had ever known. He took a temporary job on a ranch just outside Bozeman, close enough that he could ride out to Lily's homestead several times a week. They spent long evenings on her porch, talking and laughing and learning each other's hearts. He helped her repair her barn roof and build a new chicken coop. She taught him the songs her father had taught her, old ballads from Ireland where her grandparents had been born. As summer turned to autumn, their courtship deepened into something neither of them could deny. Bennett found himself thinking about her every moment they were apart, counting the hours until he could see her again. And Lily, for all her fierce independence, began to lean into his presence, to trust him with her fears and hopes and dreams. One October evening, as they sat watching the sunset paint the mountains gold and crimson, Bennett took a deep breath and reached into his pocket. "Lily, I have something to ask you, and I want you to know that you can say no without fear of losing me. I will wait as long as you need." She turned to look at him, curiosity and something else, something that looked like hope, flickering in her eyes. "What is it?" He pulled out the ring he had been carrying for weeks, a simple gold band with a small emerald that had cost him most of his savings. "Lily Jenkins, would you do me the honor of becoming my wife? I love you more than I thought it was possible to love anyone. You are smart and strong and kind and brave, and I want to spend the rest of my life being worthy of you. I promise that your land will stay yours, that we will build our life together as true partners. I will respect your independence while offering you my support. I will honor your dreams while sharing my own. And I will love you every single day with everything I have." Lily's hands flew to her mouth and tears spilled down her cheeks. For a terrifying moment, Bennett thought she might refuse, but then she was nodding, reaching for him, pulling him close. "Yes," she whispered against his shoulder. "Yes, Bennett York, I will marry you. I love you so much it frightens me sometimes, the depth of it. You have shown me what true partnership means, and I want nothing more than to build a life with you." He slipped the ring onto her finger and kissed her, soft and sweet and full of promise, as the sun sank below the mountains, and the first stars began to appear in the darkening sky. They were married in November in the small church in Bozeman, with Tom Fletcher standing as Bennett's best man and the shopkeeper's kind wife standing with Lily. It was a simple ceremony, but to Bennett, it was perfect. Lily wore a dress she had made from the green fabric he had given her that first Saturday, and she had never looked more beautiful. They spent their wedding night in the cabin by the cottonwoods, and Bennett held his wife close and thanked whatever fate had led him to drive his cattle through that particular meadow on that particular evening. "I cannot believe you are really mine," he murmured into her hair. "I am not yours," Lily corrected gently but with love in her voice. "I am my own, but I choose to share my life with you, and that is so much better." "You are absolutely right," Bennett said, kissing her forehead. "And I am not yours, I am my own, but I choose to share my life with you too." Winter came early that year, blanketing the Montana prairie in white. Bennett and Lily spent those cold months planning their future, sketching out where they would build a new barn for the horses they hoped to raise, where they would expand the garden, how they would save money to buy more land. They lay together in the warm cocoon of their bed, listening to the wind howl outside, and spoke of all the dreams they would build together. When spring returned, Bennett used his savings to buy 6 young mares with good bloodlines, and he and Lily began the work of building their horse breeding business. It was hard work, demanding and sometimes frustrating, but they did it together, side by side, equal partners in every sense. One evening in late summer, nearly a year after that fateful day when Bennett had first heard Lily singing, they stood together in the meadow where they had met. The cattle were long gone, but the wildflowers still bloomed, and the sunset still painted the sky in shades of gold and amber. "Sing for me," Bennett requested softly, pulling Lily back against his chest and wrapping his arms around her waist. "What would you like to hear?" she asked, leaning into his embrace. "Anything, everything, just sing." So she did, her voice rising clear and pure into the evening air, and Bennett closed his eyes and listened and knew that he was the luckiest man alive. He had found his home, not in a place but in a person, in this remarkable woman who had calmed his nervous herd with nothing but a song and who had captured his heart just as completely. By October, Lily began to suspect she might be carrying their first child. She waited until she was certain, and then one evening she took Bennett's hand and placed it on her still flat stomach. "We are going to have a baby," she whispered, her eyes shining with joy and a little fear. Bennett felt his heart expand in his chest until he thought it might burst. "A baby," he repeated, wonder filling his voice. He dropped to his knees and pressed his ear against her stomach, as if he might hear the tiny heartbeat within. "Thank you," he said, though he was not sure if he was speaking to Lily or to God or to the universe itself. "Thank you for this gift." Their son was born the following June, a healthy baby boy with his mother's eyes and his father's dark hair. They named him William, after Lily's father, and Bennett held him with shaking hands and promised to be the best father he could possibly be. Life settled into a rhythm over the next few years, busy and full and rich with love. The horse business prospered, and they were able to buy more land, expanding their little homestead into a proper ranch. Lily sang to the horses the way she had once sung to cattle, and they responded to her voice with trust and affection. Bennett worked harder than he ever had in his life, but it was joyful work, building something that would last, creating a legacy for their son. When William was 3, Lily gave birth to twin daughters, Emma and Grace, who filled the house with noise and laughter and chaos. Bennett watched his wife manage their 3 children, the ranch, and her own dreams with tireless energy, and fell more in love with her with each passing day. One evening, when the twins were toddling around the expanded cabin they had built to accommodate their growing family, and William was helping his father in the barn, Lily stood in the meadow where she and Bennett had first met and sang the same song she had sung that long ago evening. She thought about how much had changed since then, how much she had gained. Her father had wanted her to be independent, to never lose herself in marriage, and she had honored that wish while also finding a love deeper and truer than she had ever imagined possible. Bennett came to stand beside her as her song ended, slipping an arm around her waist in a gesture as natural as breathing. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "About how I almost did not help that day," Lily admitted. "I heard the cattle, and I thought about just going back to my cabin and letting whoever was driving them figure it out themselves. But something told me to go to sing to see if I could help. And because I listened to that impulse, I found you." "I heard your voice and thought an angel had come to save me," Bennett said with a smile. "Turns out I was right." "I am no angel," Lily protested, laughing. "I am just a woman who loves her family and her horses and her land." "You are my angel," Bennett insisted, turning her to face him. "My partner, my love, my home. You gave me everything I never knew I needed." They kissed as the sun set behind them, the same sun that had set on their first meeting, on their first kiss, on the day they married, on the days their children were born. And Lily knew, with absolute certainty, that she had found exactly what she was meant to find that evening when she had walked into a meadow and sung to calm a stranger's nervous herd. The years continued to pass, marked by the changing seasons and the growth of their children. William grew into a strong, thoughtful boy who loved the horses as much as his parents did. Emma and Grace were inseparable, finishing each other's sentences and causing double the mischief wherever they went. In 1885, Lily gave birth to another son, whom they named Thomas after Tom Fletcher, who had become like family to them over the years. The ranch prospered beyond their wildest dreams. The horses they bred became known throughout Montana and beyond for their strength, intelligence, and gentle temperament. Buyers came from as far as California and Texas to purchase their stock, and Bennett and Lily reinvested every penny back into the land and the business. But success never changed who they were at their core. Lily still tended her garden and made her own preserves. Bennett still rose before dawn to check on the horses and mend fences. They still sat on their porch in the evenings, watching the sunset and talking about their day. And sometimes, when the mood struck her, Lily would sing, and Bennett would listen with the same rapt attention he had given her that very first time. On their 10th wedding anniversary, Bennett took Lily back to the meadow where they had met. He had arranged for Tom and his wife to watch the children for the evening, and he packed a picnic dinner of all of Lily's favorite foods. They spread a blanket in the wildflowers, ate and drank and laughed together, and watched the sun sink toward the mountains. "Do you remember what I was thinking that first night?" Bennett asked, pulling Lily close against his side. "When I heard you singing." "Tell me," Lily said, snuggling into his warmth. "I thought that if I could just keep you singing forever, everything would be all right. The cattle would stay calm, the storm would pass, and the world would make sense again." He paused, pressing a kiss to her temple. "And I was right, in a way. You have been singing your way through our life together, bringing calm and beauty and joy to everything you touch. Our children, our home, our business, me, you make everything better just by being yourself." Lily felt tears prick her eyes. "You gave me something I never thought I could have," she said softly. "Love without loss, partnership without surrender. You let me be wholly myself while also being wholly yours. That is the greatest gift anyone has ever given me." They stayed in that meadow until the stars came out, holding each other and talking about their past and their future. They spoke of their hopes for their children, of their plans to buy the adjacent property that had just gone up for sale, of growing old together on this land they had built with their own hands. As they finally gathered up their picnic and prepared to ride home, Lily stopped and looked back at the meadow one more time. "This place changed everything," she said. "One song, one evening, one moment of decision to help a stranger, and it gave me a lifetime of love." "Not just a lifetime," Bennett said, taking her hand. "Forever. Even when we are gone, our children will remember the story of how we met. They will tell their children, and those children will tell theirs. The love we built here will echo through generations." He was right. As the years rolled on and their children grew and married and had children of their own, the story of how Bennett York had found Lily Jenkins singing in a meadow became a family legend, told and retold with love and laughter. William brought his wife to that same meadow to propose. Emma sang to her babies the same songs her mother had sung. Grace named her ranch the Singing Meadow in honor of her parents' first meeting. Thomas, the youngest, became a musician and composed a ballad about his mother's voice and his father's patient love. Bennett and Lily lived to see their grandchildren born, to watch the ranch expand and prosper under William's management, to know the deep satisfaction of a life well lived. They grew old together, their hair turning silver, their hands becoming wrinkled, but their love never diminishing. If anything, it deepened with time, the way a river carves its path through stone, becoming more itself with every passing year. On a warm summer evening in 1913, when Bennett was 62 and Lily was 60, they sat together on the porch of the home they had built, surrounded by 3 generations of family who had come to celebrate their 35th wedding anniversary. Children ran through the yard, chasing chickens and playing tag. Teenagers helped set up tables for the feast. Adults stood in clusters, talking and laughing and enjoying the beautiful evening. "Sing for us, Grandma," one of the little ones called out. "Sing the special song." Lily looked at Bennett, and he nodded with a smile. She stood, a little stiffly now, her joints not what they used to be, and cleared her throat. When she opened her mouth, her voice emerged clear and true. Perhaps not as powerful as it had been 35 years ago, but still beautiful, still capable of bringing peace and joy to all who heard it. She sang the song she had sung that first evening, the one that had calmed Bennett's nervous herd and changed both their lives forever. And Bennett sat and listened, just as he had that first time, until the sun went down and the stars came out and their family surrounded them with love. When the song ended, there was a moment of perfect silence, and then the family erupted in applause. Bennett stood and took Lily's hand, raising it to his lips and kissing it gently. "Thank you," he whispered, his eyes bright with emotion, "for that first song and for every song since. For every day, every moment, every breath we have shared. Thank you for choosing me." "Thank you for listening," Lily whispered back. "For truly hearing me, not just my voice but my heart. Thank you for loving all of me exactly as I am." They embraced there on the porch, surrounded by the evidence of their love, the family they had built together, the life they had created from nothing but determination and partnership and devotion. And in that moment, they were not just an old couple remembering their youth. They were also that young cowboy and that brave homesteader, meeting for the first time in a meadow full of wildflowers, beginning a love story that would last through all the years of their lives. Bennett and Lily York lived many more years together, watching their family continue to grow and thrive. They faced challenges, as all people do, but they faced them together, drawing strength from each other and from the deep well of love they had built over decades. They celebrated victories and mourned losses, always side by side, always partners in every sense of the word. When Bennett passed away peacefully in his sleep at the age of 71, Lily grieved deeply but without despair. She had been given a gift that many people never received, a true and lasting love that had enriched every day of her life. She lived another 8 years, spending her time teaching her grandchildren to sing, telling stories about the old days, and working in the garden she had tended for more than half a century. On the evening before she died, surrounded by her children and many of her grandchildren, Lily asked to be taken to the meadow one last time. They carried her there on a chair, wrapped in quilts against the autumn chill, and she looked out over the land she had loved so well. As the sun began to set, she sang one final time, her voice thin and wavering but still sweet, still carrying that quality that had once calmed 300 nervous cattle and captured the heart of a weary cowboy. When the song ended and the sun touched the mountains, Lily closed her eyes and slipped away, a smile on her face, surrounded by love. They buried her next to Bennett on a hill overlooking the ranch, and on her headstone they carved the words Bennett had once spoken to her. She sang, and the world made sense again. The ranch passed to William, and then to his children and his children's children. The family grew and spread, branching out across Montana and beyond, but they always came back to the Singing Meadow, to the place where their family story began. And on summer evenings, when the light slants golden across the prairie, and the wildflowers nod in the breeze. If you listen very carefully, you might still hear the echo of a song that once calmed a nervous herd and brought two lonely souls together in love. The story of Bennett York and Lily Jenkins became more than just a family tale. It became a reminder that sometimes the most important moments in life come when we least expect them, that helping a stranger can change everything, that true love is built not on passion alone, but on respect and partnership and daily choice. It became a testament to the strength of women like Lily, who refused to lose themselves in marriage, but who opened their hearts to love anyway. And it became a celebration of men like Bennett, who understood that true strength means lifting others up rather than holding them down. Their great-grandchildren still visit the meadow where it all began. Young couples go there to get engaged. Families picnic there on warm summer days. And sometimes, someone will stand among the wildflowers and sing, continuing a tradition that began more than 100 years ago when a young woman heard cattle in distress and decided to help, never knowing that her kindness would lead to a love story for the ages. The ranch still operates today, though much has changed since Bennett and Lily's time. The horses are still bred with care and sold with pride. The land is still worked with respect and gratitude. And every November, on the anniversary of Bennett and Lily's wedding, the family gathers in Bozeman and then travels out to the ranch for a celebration. They tell the old stories, sing the old songs, and remember the two people who started it all. The youngest children sit wide-eyed as they hear about the cowboy who fell in love with a voice before he ever saw a face. The teenagers roll their eyes a little but secretly find it romantic. The adults smile with knowledge, understanding now what Bennett and Lily knew then, that real love is not a fairy tale but something you build day by day, choice by choice, song by song. And somewhere, in whatever place souls go when their earthly work is done, Bennett York holds Lily Jenkins, and they dance to music only they can hear, and they smile at the legacy they left behind, not just in children and grandchildren, though those are precious. Not just in land and horses, though those are valuable, but in the example they set, the story they lived, the proof they offered that love built on equality and respect and true partnership can last not just a lifetime but forever. The sun sets on the Montana prairie the same way it did that evening in June of 1878. The wildflowers still bloom in the meadow. The cottonwoods still rustle in the evening breeze. And if you stand very still and listen with your whole heart, you might just hear the ghost of a song drifting across the grassland, a voice clear and pure as mountain water, singing of love and home and the beautiful, mysterious ways that two people can find each other against all odds and build something that will last through all the generations yet to come. This is the story of He found her singing to calm his nervous herd. The cowboy listened until the sun went down. This is the story of Bennett York and Lily Jenkins. This is the story of true love in the Wild West, of partnership and respect, of two independent souls who chose to walk through life together without either one losing themselves along the way. And it is a story that will be told as long as there are people who believe in love, who value equality, who understand that the greatest adventures are the ones we share with someone who sees us, truly sees us, and loves us all the more for it.